In this episode, we uncover a chilling mystery, a young woman's sudden disappearance that unravels into a disturbing saga of trust misplaced, control exerted, and a tragic end that no one saw coming. You often hear about search teams and volunteers in true crime, and this case is no different. Anna, a kind-hearted young woman, was one of those helping out. She joined a small group scanning a barren, remote area in a place called Mari. This wasn't just curiosity, she was searching with purpose. What caught everyone's attention was the land itself. Endless dry earth stretched across the horizon, cracked soil, dead branches, and silence. There were only a few trees offering scarce shade under the punishing June sun. Anna wandered toward one of the trees, dense with sticks and branches. But this tree stood out, it wasn't like the rest. A witness later reported something odd. A visibly shaken man had been seen earlier, carrying thorn-covered branches away from that same tree, and at a very unusual hour. As Anna searched near the thick pile of twigs, the wind suddenly shifted, carrying with it a foul, decaying odor. That moment changed everything. Overwhelmed by the stench, Anna called her partner, but after that, her memories blurred. Soon after, a horrifying discovery was made. Hidden beneath that twisted mess was a woman's body, so brutally injured that even her fingerprints were destroyed. The victim was later identified as Anastasia Patricia Rubinska, born in Poland in 1996. Anastasia's brother, Adrian, described her as driven and full of dreams. She had always wanted to explore the world and hoped to one day grace magazine covers as a model. Her journey hadn't been easy, but she was determined. After high school, she attended beauty school in Poland, though she eventually dropped out. Despite that setback, Anastasia found small modeling gigs while continuing to chase her dream. She also began working in luxury resorts and upscale restaurants around the world, which allowed her to travel frequently, something she deeply loved. Her father, Andrei, remembered her as sweet and warm-hearted. However, he also admitted that her trusting nature made her vulnerable, a trait that sadly played a role in this tragic story. Like many teens, Anastasia had her rebellious moments, causing her parents more than a few sleepless nights. But nothing prepared them for what was coming. She met her boyfriend, Michael, when they were both still teenagers. Over the years, their bond only grew stronger. After more than a decade together, they had dreams of traveling the world as a couple and maybe even getting married someday. In May 2023, Anastasia and Michael decided to move to Greece for a fresh start. Their goal? To work, save money, and begin the next chapter of their lives. They settled on the scenic Greek island of Kos, and both landed jobs at a luxury hotel in the tourist area of Marmari. Anastasia worked as a hostess at the hotel's restaurant. Sadly, she had only been working there for about a month before the tragedy occurred. On June 12, 2023, Anastasia began her shift as usual. During work, she suffered a serious burn on her hand but pushed through the pain and finished her shift. She hadn't eaten all day. Michael encouraged her to eat, but she refused, opting instead to go out for drinks after work. They had planned to meet up at a nearby bar, something they often did. But that night, Anastasia would never return. While Michael was still at work, Anastasia kept messaging him, updating him on her location, who she was with, and what she was doing. Then, something changed. Michael learned that Anastasia had met someone and was drinking with him. He didn't think too much of it at first. They often bought drinks nearby, sometimes alone, sometimes together. At 10:30 p.m., Michael called her. Anastasia sounded uneasy. She told him she didn't feel safe and asked him to come pick her up. The problem? Michael was still at work and couldn't leave right away. Then, Anastasia mentioned someone had offered to give her a ride on a motorbike. Michael immediately felt uneasy. He urged her to wait for him instead, but Anastasia, always trusting, believed she would be okay. Moments later, the messages stopped. Before going silent, Anastasia sent Michael not one, but 3 different location pins in rapid succession. Then, nothing. No texts. No calls. Terrified, Michael alerted both the police and Anastasia's family in Poland. He couldn't shake the dread caused by her strange texts, especially one that said everything was fine, right after she claimed to feel unsafe. Greek police began their investigation immediately. The tone of her messages raised alarm, but they didn't offer enough to locate her. Authorities turned to surveillance footage from a nearby grocery store where Anastasia was last seen. The video showed Anastasia sitting alone near a fence, sipping wine and eating snacks. Then, more men arrived. Not 1 or 2, but 5. Witnesses confirmed this. Around 8:30 p.m., Anastasia was seen with 5 men, reportedly from the local area, appearing to be drinking and having fun. But 2 hours later, she would send that haunting message, "I don't feel safe." Further CCTV footage revealed something chilling: Anastasia leaving the scene on the back of a motorcycle, driven by one of those 5 men. At this point, the puzzle was coming together, and it wasn't good. Investigators worked fast. They identified the men as undocumented immigrants from Bangladesh and Pakistan. After interviewing locals and shopkeepers, police zeroed in on one name: Salahuddin S., a man from Bangladesh. Not much is known about him, not even his full name, but it was confirmed he was the last person seen with Anastasia. He had reportedly been living on Kos for a while and once worked in construction, but had recently lost his job. Things only got darker when police discovered he had a criminal history. Even without knowing all the facts, one thing seemed clear: Salahuddin was not someone you'd want to be alone with, not even in broad daylight. So, why did he approach Anastasia in the first place? Were the other men with him somehow involved in where she ended up? And most importantly, where was Anastasia now? With so many unanswered questions, the police moved quickly. Salahuddin and the 4 other men who had been with Anastasia that night were immediately considered persons of interest. Since they had been seen with her just before she vanished, it wasn't hard for authorities to find them around Kos. Within a matter of hours, all 5 were brought in for questioning. Naturally, police suspected that these men knew more than they were letting on. The officers were already uneasy, but when they saw the men up close, that suspicion only deepened. The questioning began with a simple question: were they with Anastasia on the night of June 12th? To everyone's surprise, the group admitted they had indeed interacted with her. According to their version of events, Anastasia had been clearly intoxicated, and they claimed they only helped her get home because they were being good Samaritans. They insisted they dropped her off and then went on their way. But the detectives weren't buying it. For starters, if she had made it home safely, her boyfriend wouldn't have raised the alarm. It was obvious that something had gone wrong. Then came the most suspicious detail: Salahuddin had noticeable cuts and scratches on his face and arms. Another man from the group had a visible scratch across his nose. These weren't the kind of marks you'd get from simply helping someone home. The men insisted the injuries were from unrelated accidents that happened days earlier, but their explanations didn't sit right with investigators. 6 men, 1 woman, and now 2 of them had visible signs of a struggle? Something wasn't adding up. Still, despite the rising suspicions, the police didn't have enough hard evidence to make an arrest yet. Before letting them go, they collected DNA samples, keeping the group under close watch. Meanwhile, Anastasia's family and boyfriend were living a nightmare. She had just begun a new chapter in Greece, and now she had completely vanished. The idea of someone disappearing is always chilling, but doing so in a foreign country, without a trace, was even more terrifying. Search efforts continued relentlessly. Police, volunteers, and even sniffer dogs scoured the island. Days passed, and there was still no sign of Anastasia, until investigators tracked down her cell phone signal. Records showed her phone had remained active until around 11:30 p.m. on the night she went missing. After that, all signals stopped. The last known location was roughly 5 kilometers from the home she shared with her boyfriend. Hope took a grim turn when Anastasia's phone was found abandoned in an empty building near Marmari. The SIM card had been removed. The GPS was disabled, and all data had been wiped. No photos, no calls, no texts. It was a chilling sign. Something sinister had definitely happened. 6 days after she disappeared, the search came to a devastating end. A volunteer named Anna had been searching in the salt marshes of Tagaki, an area full of fields and dry terrain. Near a large tree, she noticed something strange: a heap of straw piled unnaturally high. She used her cane to investigate and quickly realized something was very wrong. Underneath the straw, hidden in a plastic bag, was a body. Police rushed to the scene. What they found was horrifying: a woman's naked body stuffed into the bag. It was clear the killer had gone to great lengths to destroy any evidence. Her fingerprints were removed, making identification difficult. But there was no doubt in anyone's mind: This was Anastasia. Her death was brutal. What she must have gone through in those final moments is hard to imagine. She had simply trusted the wrong person, and it had cost her everything. She didn't deserve any of this. Once the body was recovered and examined, Anastasia was officially declared murdered. In less than a week, the case had gone from a missing person report to a full-blown homicide investigation. Her family was devastated. Their daughter, who had so many dreams and a bright future ahead, was taken from them in a horrifying act of violence. As heartbreaking as it was, Anastasia's death finally gave police the hard evidence they needed. The investigation took a critical turn. A disturbing discovery was made. Her body had been left just 1 kilometer from Sulla Howden's home. That was the final straw. With this new information, Sulla Howden was arrested and charged with murder. And just like many guilty suspects, his story suddenly changed. He no longer claimed to have been helping a drunk stranger. Now, he said he and Anastasia had spent some quality time at his apartment. That shift in his account only made him look more suspicious. The noose was tightening, and it was becoming clearer that this man, the one last seen with Anastasia, held the answers to what really happened that night. Sulla Howden continued to deny any involvement in Anastasia's death. Despite his story shifting more than once, he insisted he had nothing to do with what happened. But everything changed once investigators searched his apartment. Inside his flat, police discovered several chilling pieces of evidence: strands of blonde hair, a blouse stained with what appeared to be blood, and an orange sweatshirt. Forensic testing confirmed everyone's worst fears. The hair and red stains matched Anastasia's DNA. It was now undeniable that she had been in that room. And it was there that something had gone horribly wrong. The marks on Sulla Howden's face and arms, along with the scratch across his friend's nose, told a violent story. Anastasia hadn't gone quietly. She had fought with everything she had. But what truly sealed Sulla Howden's fate wasn't just the physical evidence, it was what police found on his phone. After his arrest, investigators examined his search history. The results were bone-chilling. He had looked up things like how to delete data permanently, how to mislead a police investigation, and even how to make a body unidentifiable. There's no innocent explanation for that. And it didn't stop there. Inside his apartment, authorities also found a one-way plane ticket to Italy. He hadn't told his roommates or friends. The flight, scheduled for the same day he was arrested. He was getting ready to vanish. Once charged, Sulla Howden entered a plea of not guilty. But prosecutors laid out a different narrative, a calculated and brutal crime. They argued he lured Anastasia into his home under false pretenses and subjected her to horrific abuse before ending her life. The scratches on his associate's face also raised serious questions about whether the other men were involved, directly or indirectly. Despite putting up a fight, Anastasia tragically lost her life. Her body was found discarded, hidden in a plastic bag near the salt marshes of Tagaki Beach. On December 6, 2024, Sulla Howden was found guilty of manslaughter with intent and sentenced to life in prison. Outside the courtroom, Anastasia's father, Andrei, addressed the press with a heavy heart. "This sentence won't bring our daughter back," he said, "but justice was done. He should never walk free again, and he should never have the chance to hurt anyone else." Anastasia's murder sparked outrage around the world. The idea that a man with a history of criminal behavior could live freely among tourists and locals alike was deeply unsettling. Women everywhere felt the weight of what happened, another reminder of how vulnerable you can be in the wrong moment with the wrong person. As far as the public knows, Sulla Howden was the only one convicted in connection with Anastasia's death. It remains unclear whether any of the other men face charges, or if investigators could ever prove their involvement. For her family, the sentencing brought a complicated sense of closure, a blend of sorrow and justice. In a heartbreaking moment, Anastasia's brother Adrian reportedly said he wished he could be alone with her killer for just 10 minutes to finish him. As intense as that is, anyone who has lost someone so violently can understand the depth of that pain. Anastasia wasn't looking for trouble. She had gone out for a drink after a long day, like so many of us do. That one ordinary decision put her in the path of a predator. She was just 27 years old, with her whole life ahead of her. What happened to Anastasia wasn't just tragic, it was monstrous. Thank you for watching. If this story impacted you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more true crime stories like this. And let us know your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters. Until next time, stay informed, stay safe.